All right, welcome on in. We are live here. The College Football Playoff is officially set in. Unlike ESPN, we're not going to screw you. We're not going to give you some gigantic intro here and delay the inevitable. We got the teams. We got the bracket as well. Let's throw it up here. Poorly cropped. Please apologize or please bear with me here. But let's break it down. First question is here there on the bottom. Did the committee get it right? And for my answer, yes. I think they nailed it. I think they absolutely nailed it, at least when it comes to the 12 teams in the College Football Playoff. The big discussion is Alabama, SMU. Who deserved that last spot? For me, it's SMU. And here's why. These rankings the committee puts out, they have to matter, right? Every week, you see how the committee ranks teams. So all you're really judging is how a team performs based on how they did last year, where they're ranked. So you go into this final weekend, conference championship weekend, you had SMU ranked 3 spots higher than Alabama. Why that's important is, number one, you had SMU playing in an extra game that Alabama was not good enough to make. I don't want to hear about conferences right now. The reality is Alabama was not good enough to make the SEC title game versus SMU was good enough to make their conference title game. I don't see how it's fair or right to drop SMU. Again, they came in 3 spots higher, so they have to drop at least 4 spots below to drop them behind Alabama in order to put the Tide in as a 4th and final team. I don't see you can do that when you lose at the buzzer to Clemson. Is Clemson a great team? Absolutely not. No, I'm not sitting here trying to dress them up here. It's a nice win for them. I thought SMU would win pretty handily. Not a great loss for the Mustangs. But again, when you look at what the committee thought of them going into this week, the committee with SMU 8 and Alabama 11 told you with all 12 games in the regular season, they thought SMU, despite their lack of strength of schedule, despite their lack of an impressive win or two, they liked their overall body of work. They liked the fact that SMU, despite having no marquee wins, also has no brutal losses, unlike the Tide. And at number 8 versus number 11, they thought SMU's overall body work in the regular season was better. So now when you go to conference championship weekend, unless it was egregious, unless you lost 45-0, I don't think the way SMU lost warranted them dropping 4 spots. I think the committee got it right. SMU is the final at-large team, and what also we can do, thankfully here, is put to bed the nonsense about SEC bias and Alabama's going to get in because of brand. You heard Kirk and Booger fighting about it on that egregiously long, what was a pregame show, essentially, before we got the rankings. Maybe I'm a sucker here. I truly don't think when you're ranking these teams that the committee actually takes brand into account. And I think that just showed, because if that's the case, with SMU having 2 overall losses and Alabama 3, there was a push to put Bama in. You could have justified, well, Clemson's not great. Let's put Alabama in. Alabama's out because they could not take care of their business. They lost 3 games, 2 which are to 2 of the worst teams in the SEC, in Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. That's your fault. You had everything right there in front of you. Couldn't control your business. Couldn't beat who you're supposed to beat. The committee got it right. Now, where I think they got it wrong is the seeding. Let's put it back up here just, again, to kind of show you. So they have Texas 5, Penn State 6, and then Notre Dame 7. I think they got it right with Notre Dame being 7 again. Conference championship weekend, I don't believe you can punish a team for playing an extra game they deserved and reward a team that's at home, right? Kicking the feet up on the couch and not playing. So I couldn't see a situation where you could put Notre Dame ahead of Penn State and also put Notre Dame ahead of Texas. They're not playing the conference championship game. They lost to Northern Illinois. I think they deserve to be behind both. Committee got it right. The really only gripe I have is I think Penn State should be above Texas. I know you're going to say, Ryan, you homer, you Penn State homer. Here's why. This is an unbiased, objective opinion that Penn State should be 5, Texas 6. Look at their resumes. Both have 2 losses. Right, to 2 of the best teams in the country, Penn State in Ohio State and Oregon, and obviously Texas losing twice to Georgia. But look at how that game went yesterday. Texas's offense is supposed to be one of the best in the country. They got manhandled by Georgia's defense again. Quinn Ewers looked awesome in that game again. And Georgia losing Carson back at the end of the first half, playing against Gunnar Stockton, the backup quarterback. Texas lost this game on a neutral site to Georgia's backup quarterback. I don't think that's, to me, the same as Penn State losing to Oregon by 1 score. Again, you had Texas 2, Penn State 3 going into this week in the committee's rankings. I think when you look at conference championship games and how they went, To me, Penn State, I think objectively looked a lot better, a lot more competitive than Texas did. I think you should reward the Nittany Lions for pushing the only team in college football yet without a loss all the way to the end. I think you should punish a team in Texas who not only failed to get revenge on the only team that beat them in the regular season, but failed to get revenge against a team with a backup quarterback. That's why, at least for me, I would put Penn State 5, Texas 6, Notre Dame 7. Outside of just seeding, and really it's only Texas and Penn State that I have an issue with here. 5 and 6, I would just flip-flop. Otherwise, I think the committee nailed it. Boise State rightfully over Arizona State at 3. I think Boise State's season has been impressive. And again, when you look at the rankings, when they came in this week at 10 and Arizona State came in at 15, I don't see how you can justify, even with the blowout when they had, putting Arizona State at least 6 spots higher than Boise State when the Broncos also beat a ranked team as well. Like, again, these rankings have to matter. And so you have to take everything we saw in Conference Championship weekend through the lens of, okay, well, going into this weekend, this is how the committee saw everybody. Through a 12-team regular season with all games being equal, this is how the committee sorted it. And I think you have to look at Conference Championship weekend and their rankings through that prism of, okay, SMU is 8, Alabama 11. Did SMU lose to Clemson? Is that enough to drop them 4 spots behind Alabama in a game Alabama was not good enough to make? No. I think they got it right with putting SMU in. I'm also a little confused. Actually, the only thing I'll say about seeding is a little confused why Clemson is 12 and SMU 11. I get it. Clemson has 1 extra loss, 3 compared to 2. But they did play head-to-head. I mean, we just saw that, 12 hours ago? They beat SMU in the conference title game. I would have put Clemson 11, SMU 12. But again, you could argue nitpicking here. Either way, I think the committee, most importantly, got the 12 teams correct. All right, let's put the bracket back up here because let's talk now first-round matchups. Let's talk about some of the most exciting games we're going to see in round number 1. The one that, to me, at least jumps out easily, right? Tennessee, Ohio State. 2 of the best teams in the country in Columbus. Kirk said it on ESPN before, and I'm really fascinated to see what that Ohio State crowd is like, what the reception Ryan Day and this Buckeyes team gets, considering last time they played at Ohio Stadium, they lost to Michigan. I think it should be still a rowdy crowd, and you know that's Tennessee's a tough team coming in. I would favor right now Ohio State to beat the Vols. I do think cold weather will play a factor here. I think Ohio State is built to win cold weather games compared to Tennessee. And Ohio State, I still believe in them. This may sound stupid. I still think Ohio State can win the national title this year, in large part because just forget what you saw with Michigan for a second. They played 3 top 5 teams this year in Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana. And in all 3 games, they look pretty damn good. You know, they lost to Oregon by 1, smoked Indiana, and beat Penn State. All 3 games, Will Howard, I thought, played his best ball of the season. You know, they were not really running the ball Ohio State well against Oregon, and he threw for 300 yards. I get what you could say, oh, Ryan, the slide at the end. Okay, fine. But Will Howard, I did not have many expectations for Will Howard going into this year. He's far exceeded how I thought he would play. He's, to me, again, outside of the Michigan game, has been an A. He's helped improve this offense. I think you could call him a big game player. And I think a lot of his struggles, you could argue, 1, were getting hit, and maybe he wasn't all there. And then number 2, I do think that Ohio State team looked tight because Ryan Day was tight against Michigan. Every other team, they've been confident, they've been loose, they've been cocky. I think you'll see that arrogant, cocky, confident Ohio State team when they play Tennessee here in 2 weeks or so. I think that's going to be a really good matchup here. The other matchup I'm very excited for, Texas-Clemson. Look, I don't think Clemson's very good. Again, I was surprised they won that game. But Texas is also a team when you look at, and they, to me, leave a lot to be desired. Like Quinn Ewers, I tweeted it last week when they were playing A&M. He's the most maddening player in all of college football because he can have a drive, a quarter, a half, where he looks like the best quarterback in college football, where he's making some beautiful throws, he's manipulating the pocket well, he's reading defenses, he puts the ball in some really tight windows. He can be, at times, the best quarterback in all of college football. Then, on the very next drive, very next quarter, very next half, he could be the worst player in college football, where he just can't read the blitz. He's getting sacked, holding on to the ball too long, making some awful decisions, and just throwing the ball up in the middle of nowhere and praying he doesn't get intercepted. I mean, going back to the A&M game 2 weeks ago, I tweeted, like, in the first half, Texas should be up 31-0, both in part because of Quinn Ewers and because of Quinn Ewers. He's so up and down. When you look at Clemson and look at how they were able to beat SMU last night, turnovers. They caused a lot of turnovers, got in the head of Kevin Jennings, and made some plays. Quinn's going to give you some. And he honestly should have a few more turnovers than he didn't. in that game against Georgia. Georgia had an easy pick deep in their own end. I believe it was in the first half, if I'm not mistaken, maybe early third quarter. But like Quinn Ewers has made some bad decisions. It feels like constantly. He's not a guy that I can sit here and fully trust. I think Texas's talent is still so elite. I love their defense. I love their defensive line. I love their offense. Their playmakers on the outside are so hard to defend. But as we just saw yesterday in both the SEC title game and the ACC title game, that to me is far from a lock. That to me is far from a guarantee. And so I want to put the bracket up here one more time. When you want to talk about first round matchups here, where could we see an upset? Where could we see a road team come out and win? I would say right now, the most likely road team to win, I think, is Clemson. I think they're the most likely to win over Texas with how they're able to force turnovers, with how much in a shell, all of a sudden we could see Texas go in and that offense just go from, in the left lane on the Autobahn going 120 miles an hour to the right lane sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic and just not even being able to put, 3 good plays together to get a first down. Clemson's ability on defense to cause havoc and force turnovers, I think, is a dangerous combo here for Texas. That's a game where I think when you look at the first round, which road team could go and win, I think it is the Clemson Tigers here in round number 1. Indiana Notre Dame is interesting. I think why I'm favoring Notre Dame in this game is because what we saw against Ohio State for the Hoosiers is that they got owned. They got pushed around. They got bullied. And I worry about that when you look at a physical, tough Notre Dame rush attack led by Jeremiah Love. The offensive line is great. They can run the ball down your throat. I'm not sure. I don't think Indiana is physical and tough enough to slow down Notre Dame's rush attack. Few have been, and we saw even when you're able to take it away, Riley Leonard can make some plays in the air like he did against USC. But Notre Dame feasts on that ground game. Their pass defense is one of the best in the country, and that could, I think, maybe hurt Curtis Rourke a little bit. That's one where I like Indiana. I loved what they've done so far this season. That's a matchup that I think is going to be a very tough one here for the Hoosiers to win. So first round matchups here. Very excited for Clemson, Texas. To me, that's where the biggest upset is. And very excited for Tennessee, Ohio State. Again, I think Ohio State wins that game at home. I think they come out confident and not scared like they did against Michigan. I think Tennessee's in trouble here. But also, you look, what's also going to be fascinating is you're seeing 3 out of the 4 in Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, cold weather destinations. Now, in the case of Indiana, they're also a cold weather team, so the weather shouldn't be that much of a factor. But SMU going to Happy Valley, boy, I may be there. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy. If that's a night game, oh, boy. Pack the heaters, pack the gloves, pack 3 pair of gloves. It's going to be bitter cold. Same thing with Columbus, Ohio. If you're Tennessee, again, I know they're not in the deep South here, but one SEC team going to one Big Ten country, I think it's going to be all Big Ten here, at least in those 2 matchups, Ohio State and Penn State. All right, so now that we have the bracket, let's go to this. Who is the team to beat? And I think, to me, the answer is obvious. It's Oregon. I mean, looking at them yesterday, I don't know how you stop them offensively. Like they to me have no weaknesses when you look at how they're able to run their offense. Dillon Gabriel is just an assassin. He sits back there and picks you apart. That offense line is good enough to where they don't really allow a ton of pressure. They are veteran-laden. They are tough on the inside. They are great at the tackle position. You saw Penn State. They try to get after him. They try to pressure Gabriel. Did not have a lot of luck. And the few times they did, he gets the ball just a split second before they're able to get there. He's one of the quickest releases in all of college football. He has tremendous playmakers on the outside. You saw Tez Johnson have a career day. Terrence Ferguson, a tight end, is a walking mismatch. Trayshawn Holden, Evan Stewart are burners on the outside as well here. The run game led by Jordan James and Noah Whittington is really tough to slow down. Oregon was able to have a great balance, run and pass as well against Penn State, but also all season long. And defensively, the only question you have about Oregon is, are they tough enough to stop the run? They did a good job against Ohio State for the most part in stopping their run game with Quinshon Judkins and Trayvon Henderson. Henderson had a good game, but Judkins and everyone else really did not. But you saw Penn State gash them. Over 230 yards on the ground. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen both had their way with that Ducks offense or run defense, And you look at it for Oregon here. Look, they may get a rematch either with Ohio State or Tennessee. Both teams, but more Tennessee. If Tennessee's able to go on the road and beat Ohio State, that is an elite run game coming to town. Or at least in this case, probably going to the Fiesta Bowl for the neutral site game. That's going to be a handful for the Ducks now to try to slow down If it is Tennessee, they play in round number 2, because I think you saw the blueprint right now. If you're trying to beat Oregon, you got to be able to run the ball. Number one, because you can. And you saw Penn State's offensive line play a tremendous game last night in their loss in the Big Ten title game, but also to keep that Oregon offense on the sideline. They are prolific. There's not much, it's going to be really difficult to stop them. I know Tennessee's defense, both Tennessee and Ohio State's defenses are very good. Same with Penn State. And you saw Oregon drop 32 on Ohio State, 45 on Penn State last night. There's not really defense that could slow them down. The best defense for Oregon's offense is the sideline, which is why if you're Tennessee, if you're Ohio State, run the ball. That's really the only area I thought that Oregon looks susceptible in, and I think you can take advantage of. But their offense is unstoppable. Good luck trying to slow down that speed and that run game as well. So I think it's Oregon's title to lose. I would be honestly very surprised if they don't win at all, in part because I just don't know who's good enough to beat them. I know they may get a rematch with Ohio State, and Ohio State lost by 1 on the road the last time they played. I just think Oregon's gotten better since then. That happened in early October. Oregon's been the only team this year that their growth and improvement has been linear for the most part. Where outside of a road bump against Wisconsin in the middle of November, they've been getting better each and every week. They've been stacking good wins. They've been, their offensive line's been improving and getting healthier. The pass game's been getting better. They're playing their best football right now. They still haven't peaked yet, I would argue. So I think they're a much different team than the team that, that they were when they played Ohio State a few weeks ago, or in this case now, a few months ago. And that's why I think, I don't think Ohio State's good enough. I don't think if they find a rematch with Penn State that they're good enough. I don't think Georgia's consistent enough. That's the thing with Georgia too. You look yesterday, sure, their defense can be great. Their defense can stop anybody. But can their offense sustain drives? Can their offense keep the ball out of the other team's hands and make enough plays? I don't think so. And so when you look at the balance Oregon has, offense, defense, run, pass on offense, I think to me they're the team to beat, and it's a runaway. I would still put in terms of other teams that can win a national title if an upset does happen and Oregon doesn't win. I would still put the other two teams I think can win a national title, Texas and Ohio State. Maybe stupid here going with Texas, but you look at their road again. We'll pull the bracket up. I mean, Clemson, Arizona State again. That's well, I do think the Clemson game is tricky. That's a path that I think anybody would sign up for. And you look at Ohio State again. It's going to be a murderer's row here. Tennessee, who's a really good team at home in round number 1. Oregon in round number 2. You may play Texas in round 3, and then I don't know. Let's call it Georgia, possibly Notre Dame, Penn State, whoever you play in the national title game. You could be playing if you're Ohio State. 1, 2, 3 of the top 4, 3 of the top 5 teams, depending on how you view Tennessee in the country. It's going to be brutal for the Buckeyes. I think, though, they have the talent to do so. I just, right now, when it comes to Georgia, at least, I just don't trust them consistently to put now 3 good games together to win a national title. I think they have the talent to win a national championship, but also, what's the deal with Carson Beck? Is he healthy? Is he going to be able to play now in what's going to be 3 weeks? That elbow injury? Is Gunnar Stockton now, was he just a little bit of an aberration in that second half playing well, or is he actually a better option for Georgia? I just have, for me, too many questions. Despite the talent that they have, I have too many questions right now with Georgia to truly sit here and tell you they can win 3 games in a row playing some high-level football. They've really not been able to do that whatsoever. Think about it. Look at their entire season. Even in games they've won against Kentucky, against Georgia Tech, they have some really good wins on their resume and some solid losses as well, right? But they also have played in between some close games against some far, far inferior teams. They have not played 3 high-level games in a row yet this season. Call me a doubter, call me a skeptic. That's what I am right now when it comes to Georgia. I'm not buying that right now. In the biggest moments of the season, they're going to put together their 3 best games they possibly can in order to win a national title. I'm not buying it. They got to, at least for me, prove it before at least this year, before I start to believe in it. Really quick here, we'll get at least one thought from Abe Drinkin, who does comment on YouTube. Speaking of Penn State losing to the Big Ten title game to Oregon, he writes, hate the play call, but I could see how they hope to surprise the defense of the pass there. So I'm about the last interception that Penn State threw coming out of the 2-minute warning that ended in interception and really ended the game. I liked it. I thought it was a good play call. Like if you're Penn State, you're 2nd and 1 there, right around midfield, if I remember correctly. You could run the ball, and at 2nd and 1, that first down is there for you to get. I like the deep shot on 2nd down. I like the fact that, you know what? We got the first down in our back pocket. If this is incomplete, we got 2 downs bare minimum to get 1 yard. We've been bulldozing their defensive line all game long. I fully trust our ability on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 to get that first down. I like taking a deep shot. I do. And you know what? Honestly, hat tip to the defensive back. That was a great interception by him. And I think it's one of those things where I'd rather live by being aggressive than die by being afraid, or I'd rather die by being aggressive than die by being afraid. I have watched Penn State too many times in big games play not to lose instead of playing to win. I thought yesterday, their entire game, but that play call especially, they played yesterday's game against Oregon to win. They were not intimidated by the Ducks. They weren't afraid of playing the number 1 team in the country. They came out, and outside of a very undisciplined first quarter, you could tell they're trying to do too much. But even in that, they were trying to do so much in a positive way. They weren't tiptoeing around. They weren't, I hope some things bounce our way. They went out there trying to make plays. So even though it was frustrating with some personal fouls and some face masks, I will live with it because we haven't seen that type of aggression and fearlessness from a James Franklin coach team against one of the best teams in the country. We haven't seen that in a long time, probably since 2017 in that Ohio State game where Penn State lost on the road. And that, unfortunately, at least for me, that game that still haunts me to this day. Probably the worst Penn State loss I've witnessed. This is my time as a student there. But I thought, like, that's one of those losses, not to be Mr. Moral loss guy, but I think that's, or moral victor, I should say. But I really feel good about Penn State. I do. I think they should be in the Final Four. So if you want to talk, let's finish up with this. Let's do predictions. All right. On the record, will we do it? You know what? Let's get nuts. Let's get crazy. I think Clemson's beating Texas in round number 1. Give me Ohio State over Tennessee, Penn State over SMU, Notre Dame over Indiana. Let's just put this lower third down so we can get the full bracket. My apologies. All right. So Clemson pulls off, I think, the only first-round upset we see. Clemson, Arizona State. Give me Arizona State. I like the way they're playing. Cam Scadaboo, he should be in New York. Him, Tyler Warren, Ashton Jeanty, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, excuse me. Those are the 4 players that should be in New York for the Heisman Trophy. I would put Ashton Jeanty as my Heisman winner, but that's just me. I think Arizona State rides Cam Scadaboo. They get to the Final Four. They take down Clemson. I think Oregon plays Ohio State and beats them for the 2nd time in a row. I think Oregon gets to the Final Four. I think Penn State beats Boise State. I think Georgia slips by Notre Dame in a close one. You'll probably be in the Peach Bowl. We'll get some sites here and some times. I don't think we have any. I believe. So I'll just triple check here so we can maybe comment on some of those if possible. I don't think we got times yet and where bowl games will be played. So we'll probably get that later on in the day here. Okay. Oregon and Nats are going to the Rose Bowl, which makes sense for them. We do have, you got to be kidding me. All right. We got I'll give you the predictions and I'll give you the times here to finish it off. Wow, that sucks. Oregon beats Ohio State. I think Penn State beats Boise State and Georgia beats Notre Dame, which puts Penn State, Georgia, in the semifinal game. Oregon taking on Arizona State. I think the Ducks beat the Sun Devils. I think Penn State can beat Georgia. I think they're more consistent. I think they are mentally tough more than they've ever been this season. Give me the Knits to take down the Dogs. I think Penn State makes the national title game. They play Oregon in a rematch. I think the Ducks win. Ducks are your 2024 national champions. Really fast here. We do have some times. Let me just take this down. We got the schedule. We got the times for the first round matchups. Remember, there's 1 on Friday night, 3 on Saturday. Friday night, Notre Dame, Indiana, 8 o'clock, ESPN. That's going to be a standalone game. Very excited for that one. That's a good one. That's a really good, intriguing matchup in the state of Indiana. 3 on Saturday. This is the one where, again, selfishly as a Penn State fan, I'm a little disappointed. Penn State SMU, noon on Saturday. I am shocked by this because all ESPN does, and this is going to be on TNT, but ESPN's licensing this game out. So bear with me there. It's a little confusing. I get it. ESPN's licensing this game out. With all the razzing that ESPN has had and all the knocks they've taken at Fox for the big noon kickoff when they went to Penn State, when it was Penn State and Ohio State, a lot of Penn State fans, including myself, and Ohio State fans as well, very upset with all these big games happening at noon. They have kept dropping subtle hints and taking jabs at Fox or putting Penn State at noon. I am floored I know it's not the best matchup, and it's probably, I would argue, the worst of the three on Saturday. I am floored they're putting right now Penn State at noon. I did not see that coming at all. Texas Clemson is at 4 o'clock, and then the 8 o'clock game on Saturday night, Ohio State, Tennessee. So this is going to be, block off your calendars Friday night, Saturday. This is going to be a great weekend of games. Just to rehash it, Notre Dame, Indiana, Friday night at 8. Penn State, SMU noon. Texas Clemson at 4. Ohio State, Tennessee, 8 o'clock on Saturday night. Again, I think the Ducks are winning. Just to quickly rehash here, the national title. I think as well, the committee got it right. SMU over Alabama. And I think outside of a few seeding issues, I think for the most part, the committee got the 12 teams correct. And that's really what all that matters. So now it's fun. Sit back, enjoy the games. Appreciate you watching. If you are visiting this channel for the first time, please make sure you subscribe. We got so much college football content coming your way between now and then. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter, Ryan_Hickey, and the number 3. We'll talk to you shortly here as well to break down everything as we get set for the college football playoff. Enjoy your Sunday.